The Constitution of India, Preamble. We, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic and to secure to all its citizens justice, social, economic and political, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship, equality of status and of opportunity, and to promote among them all fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual and the unity and integrity of the nation. In our Constituent Assembly, this 26th day of November 1949, do hereby adopt, enact and give to ourselves this Constitution.
Hi children, hope you have enjoyed this Onam very nicely. Be happy always and be positive. Before moving to the next session, I want to recap the previous session so we can move on to the recap. So in the first chapter we have just gone through early system of classification, 2 kingdom classification, and we were doing 5 kingdom classification. So here you can see, first we have seen what is biology and who is the founder of biology, and later on we just came to know what is classification and what is biological classification. And in the next slide we just understood that there is early system of classification done by Aristotle, where plant and animals were classified into 2 groups, and later on 2 kingdom classification was given by Carolus Linnaeus, but this classification was not accepted by the scientific world because of certain reasons. And then later on we understood about 5 kingdom classification given by R.H. Whittaker, and the criteria given by R.H. Whittaker related to 5 kingdom classification are cell structure, thallus organization, mode of nutrition, reproduction and phylogenetic relationship. Now based on this we just understood the classification related to organisms: Monera, Protista, fungi, plantae and Animalia. And here we understood what is kingdom Monera. It has been said that it includes prokaryotic organisms. Kingdom Protista, it includes unicellular, aquatic, eukaryotic organisms. And then about fungi, it is said that it includes eukaryotic, multicellular and heterotrophic organism. In the case of kingdom Plantae, it includes multicellular chlorophyll containing organism, and kingdom Animalia includes multicellular heterotrophic eukaryotes without cell wall. And then one by one we understood the 5 kingdom classification. That is, you can see this chart where characters is being given, and based on the characters the organisms were classified into Monera, Protista, fungi, Plantae and Animalia. Later on we came to know about the advantages or merits of 5 kingdom classification, and next we discussed in deep related to kingdom Monera. And in kingdom Monera, the Monerians, they are classified into 3 groups: Archaebacteria, Eubacteria and Mycoplasma. And related to Archaebacteria, we came to know that they are ancient groups of primitive prokaryotes, and they are grouped into 3: halophils, thermoacidophils and methanogens. And then about Eubacteria, we came to know that U stands for true and it is bacteria, isn't it? And it includes bacteria and cyanobacteria, where we again came to know about bacteria that it is unicellular monadians, and based on the shape bacteria are again grouped into 4 classes: Coccus, Bacillus, Vibrio and Spirillum. And here you can see the shapes of bacteria. Based on this shapes, the bacteria were grouped. Then now we are going to study in this session about the nutrition in bacteria and furthermore topics. So we are going to begin with nutrition in bacteria. Nutrition in bacteria may be autotrophic or heterotropic. I think, my dear children, you may be knowing about what is autotrophs and what are heterotrophs. Already these two terms you would have heard in your previous classes. So autotrophic bacteria, it has been said that, are those who synthesize their own food by using inorganic substances. So we can say that these bacteria are like plants. As plants, they are also preparing their own food. So that's why the name came as autotrophs. Auto means own, by their own, isn't it? So here it has been said these are the bacteria, they are preparing their own food, but what they are doing, they are using inorganic substances for the preparation of food. And autotrophic bacteria, they are of two types: photosynthetic autotrophics and chemosynthetic autotrophic. So from the name itself we can say what is photosynthetic and what is chemosynthetic. Photosynthetic autotrophic bacteria prepare their own food with the help of the energy obtained by sunlight, obtained from sunlight. That is similar to plants. In the case of plants, they are getting the energy from sunlight and they are preparing the food. The same way, in the case of photosynthetic autotroph, we can say that these bacteria, they are preparing their own food in the presence of sunlight. Now the second one is chemosynthetic autotrophic bacteria. These bacteria prepare their own food by oxidizing various inorganic substances to release energy. So how they are preparing their own food? They are preparing by using certain chemicals, inorganic substances they are using there, and in that manner they are releasing the energy, and the energy which is released here, it is in the form of ATP, that is adenosine triphosphate. We know that this is a currency seen in the case of plants as well as these organisms. Now these bacteria plays a major role in recycling elements like nitrogen, iron, etc. So chemosynthetic autotrophic bacteria, they are playing an important role in recycling process, so that nitrogen, iron, etc. can be obtained, isn't it? So these bacteria are known as chemosynthetic bacteria. Now heterotrophic bacteria. So till now we have just understood about autotrophic bacteria. Now we are going to learn about heterotrophic bacteria. They are those who depend on other organisms or on dead organic matter for food. So the difference between autotroph and heterotroph, I think, my dear children, you would have understood. Autotroph means preparing their own food, and heterotrophs, from the word or term itself, hetero means obtaining food from other organism. So those organisms are coming under heterotrophic category, and in them bacteria are also included. Heterotrophic bacteria are of three types: parasitic, saprophytic and symbiotic. In the case of parasitic bacteria, they absorb food from the host and causes diseases to the host. So parasitic means they are parasite on the host organism. That is, they will be depending on the host organism for their food, and in the case of parasitic, they absorb the food and they will cause diseases to the host. Those organisms or those bacteria are coming under parasitic bacteria. Example, the diseases which they are causing are typhoid, cholera, etc. So typhoid causing bacteria are there, they are parasitic. Cholera causing bacteria are there, they are parasitic. I think you would have understood about parasitic bacteria. Number 2 is saprophytic bacteria. These bacteria live on the dead and decaying matters. That means the dead matters which are present there on the earth, these bacteria, they will be feeding on those matters, or the decaying matters are there, they will be feeding on those matters or those material, and they will be taking their nutrition. Example, Zygomonas, Acetobacter, etc. Isn't it? For example, in the case of the example of parasitic, we can take one common example, Loranthus as well as Cuscuta. All these are parasitic bacteria. And in the case of saprophytic, Zygomonas, Acetobacter, Salmonella, Pseudomonas, all these are Salmonella is coming in parasitic and Pseudomonas is coming in saprophytic. So, here you can see the example of parasitic as well as saprophytic bacteria. This is parasitic bacteria and that is Salmonella bacteria, and this is saprophytic bacteria which is Pseudomonas. So, I think you would have understood about the difference between parasitic and saprophytic bacteria. Now, the third one is symbiotic bacteria. These form mutually beneficial association with other organism. That means these bacteria, they will be having a close relationship with the host cell or host organism, and they will be mutually benefited there. So, neither harming nor causing any kind of diseases, isn't it? They are just giving to the host something, and from the host they will be getting back. So, that kind of association is symbiotic association, and in that association certain bacteria are also coming. Example, Rhizobium. Rhizobium is a bacteria which is coming under symbiotic bacteria, where Rhizobium will be forming a root nodules in the leguminous plants. You may be knowing about leguminous plants. Leguminous plants are pulse, isn't it? The pulse giving plants. And in the root of this pulse giving plant, you can see the root nodules, and these root nodules are Rhizobium. So, Rhizobium will be giving the nutrients which is needed there for the plant to grow, and from the plant what all nutrient the Rhizobium is needed, it will be getting. That is the mutually benefited thing we can see in between the Rhizobium and the plant. So, it has been said that Rhizobium bacteria have ability to take atmospheric nitrogen and convert it into a soluble form. These bacteria live in the roots of leguminous plants. So, what the Rhizobium is doing, what is the nutrient which it is providing to the plant? It is the nitrogen. Rhizobium is able to absorb the atmospheric nitrogen, and it will be converting that nitrogen into a suitable form for the plant to absorb it, and the leguminous plant is helping for providing the shelter or the other mineral nutrients to the Rhizobium. So, here both are benefited, that is why the name came as symbiotic. So, that is about the types of, or we can say types of bacteria based on nutrition. Now, we are going to study about reproduction in bacteria. Reproduction in bacteria is mainly by binary fission, and this is a type of asexual reproduction. Binary means a cell is dividing into two. That is a type of asexual reproduction. Now, what is been said, under unfavorable condition, when the condition is not favorable, what happens? The bacteria is producing spores, and sexual reproduction is seen in some species. In the case of bacteria, it takes place by transferring primitive DNA from one bacterium to another. So, sexual reproduction which is taking place in bacteria is being done by transferring the primitive DNA. As we know that they are prokaryotes, so in them the primitive DNA is present there, that will be transferred from one bacterial cell to the another bacterial cell. This is how sexual reproduction is taking place in the bacteria. And in case of asexual reproduction, just now we have seen, it is by binary fission or by producing certain spores, and these spores, they will, when the favorable condition will come, that time these spores, they will fall on the proper substratum or proper place, and later on they will grow. So, this is how the life cycle of bacteria is taking place. You can see here the difference between asexual and sexual reproduction in bacteria. In the case of asexual reproduction, you can see, as I told you, the DNA is duplicating there, and later on transferring of DNA is taking place, and last daughter cells are produced and they will be separating from each other. This is how asexual reproduction is taking place. That is, the DNA which is present there in the bacterial cell, it will be duplicating first, and later on the cell, that single cell will be dividing into two daughter cells, and in them DNA will be present. This is how asexual reproduction is taking place in bacteria. And in the case of sexual reproduction, we can see here, just to understand, to make you understand, I have taken this picture, my dear children. It has been said transformation and conjugation are the two methods. Transformation and conjugation are the two methods through which bacterial reproduction is taking place. In the case of transformation, the fragments of free DNA from another bacterial cell is getting into the normal bacterial cell. So, cell will be uptaking this fragments of DNA, and later on what will happen, bacterial cell incorporates free DNA into its genetic material, and in this manner later on what will happen, the bacteria will be dividing and two daughter cells are produced here. So, transformation of DNA is taking place here, and conjugation means, you can see here, donor cell is there and recipient cell is there, and a bridge is formed there, mating bridge is formed there between them, and later on the plasmid, isn't it? It has been said that donor cell copies the DNA in its plasmid and transfers one copy to the recipient cell, isn't it? So, the plasmid is a vector which is a extra chromosomal circular DNA present in the bacteria. So, bacteria is having two DNA. One is the normal DNA, the other one is the plasmid, and plasmid is having the capacity to replicate or to multiply. So, here what is happening? The donor cell copies the DNA. So, here the DNA is being copied in the plasmid and it has been transferred, or we can say the copied DNA has been transferred into the recipient cell. In this manner, later on what is happening? Two cells are separating from each other and the recipient DNA is being seen in the daughter cells. So, this is how conjugation and transformation, the process of sexual reproduction taking place in the bacteria. So, this is about reproduction in bacteria, my dear children. Now, as I told you, eubacteria, it is having two group, one is bacteria. So, here we are finishing with the bacteria. The second group is cyanobacteria. These bacteria may be single celled, that is, they may be made up of single cell. Example is spirulina. They may be seen in colonies, therefore, it is colonial. Colonies means in a group they may be seen. An example is nostoc, or they may be seen as filamentous. Filamentous means in the form of filaments, and what is filaments? Thread like structure. So, these bacteria are seen in thread like structure. Example oscillatoria. So, oscillatoria, nostoc, spirulina, all these are the names of the bacteria based on the cell, that is single cell. Spirulina, if group of cells are present there, it is colony, and example is nostoc. And if they are seen as the filament, example is oscillatoria. Now, colonial forms of cyanobacteria are surrounded by a gelatinous sheath which prevents the drying of the cells during desiccation. That means during a dry period when it will come, desiccation means it is a drier period. So, during dry period what will happen? The colonial form of cyanobacteria such as nostoc, they will be those cells will be surrounded by a mucilage. It is they are surrounded by a gelatinous some gel like substance will be produced there by these cells, which will be protecting these cells during the dry season or dry time when it comes, or dry period when it comes. That time these colonial cyanobacteria, they will be producing certain mucilage which will be surrounding these cells so that these cells will not be drying up. They have chlorophyll A pigment like in plants. So, these cells, they are having chlorophyll A pigment which is seen in plant also. They form blooms in polluted water bodies. Blooms means certain type of, they will be spreading throughout the water body. We can see when we are going through a pond area, we can see in the pond sometimes greenish color we can see there, isn't it? That greenish color is nothing but it is the bloom. So, here also these bacteria, they will be forming bloom in the polluted water bodies. Next one, some species possess specialized cells called heterocyst. In case of nostoc, we can see heterocyst. Heterocyst help to fix atmospheric nitrogen and also increases the fertility of the soil. So, the function of heterocyst is it helps to fix atmospheric nitrogen, and number 2, increases the fertility of the soil. Example are nostoc, anabina. This figure is very important, especially this figure. Anabina is this figure, this is anabina, and this is nostoc, where we can see heterocyst. This is a specialized cell where the cell can fix the atmospheric nitrogen, and I told you gelatinous sheet is present there. This is, you can see, this is the gelatinous mucilage sheet which is been covering the cell of nostoc. So, this is about the nostoc and anabina. So, that is related to cyanobacteria, and with that we are finishing the eubacteria topic. Now, the third one is mycoplasma. These are the smallest living cells on earth. They lack cell wall, they do not have cell wall. They can survive without oxygen. These smallest living cell, that is mycoplasma, they can survive on this earth without oxygen. They cause many diseases in plants and animals. These are mycoplasma, and they are causing many diseases in plants as well as animals. My dear children, based on mycoplasma, you are going to watch a video, and after watching the video we will be moving on to the next topic. So, my dear children, watch the video.
Mycoplasma. Look at this image. Mycoplasmas are the smallest and simplest free-living gram-negative organisms without cell wall. Mycoplasmas are also called PPLO, means Pleiropneumonia like organisms. They are also called MLO, means Mycoplasma like organisms. Look at this image. This is cell membrane. There is no cell wall. This is the DNA strand, and these are ribosomes. Mycoplasmas may be saprophytic or parasitic. They are unicellular without cell wall. So, because of the lack of cell wall, they are insensitive or resistant to penicillin and also the enzyme lysozyme. Penicillin and lysozyme, they are very good chemicals which destroy the cell wall of the bacteria. So since the cell wall is not present, the mycoplasmas are resistant to this penicillin and lysozymes. The absence of cell wall imparts pleomorphic nature. Pleomorphism is a phenomenon where any cells, including bacteria, or these mycoplasma, change their shape, structure, etc. The cancer cells are said to be pleomorphic. Because of pleomorphic nature, the mycoplasmas are regarded as jokers of plant kingdom. Mycoplasmas are non-motile. Infoldings in the cell membrane are absent. They are present in bacteria and they are called mesosomes. Cytoplasm lacks membrane-bound organelles. Ribosomes are of 70S type. DNA is double-stranded and folded. The two common diseases that are caused by mycoplasma are witch's broom in plants, pneumonia in animals.
Now we are going to learn about kingdom Protista. Kingdom Protista is classified into 5 groups. Number 1 is chrysophyte, number 2 is dinoflagellate, number 3 is slime moulds, number 4 euglenoids, and number 5 protozoans. My dear children, we have finished with Monarians or kingdom Monera. Now we are going to study and understand about kingdom Protista. Kingdom Protista is classified into 5 groups. Number 1 is chrysophytes, number 2 dinoflagellates, number 3 slime moulds, number 4 euglenoids, and number 5 protozoans. We are going to study about these groups of organisms under kingdom Protista. The first one is chrysophytes. They are microscopic and photosynthetic. This group consists of diatoms and desmids. Desmids are golden algae. So, chrysophytes, they are photosynthetic and they are microscopic. We cannot see them with our naked eyes. And number second, it has been said that this group of chrysophyte, it consists of 2 subgroups, and they are diatoms and desmids. Desmids are known as golden algae. Now, what are diatoms? We can see their features. They are chief producers in the ocean. They are the chief producers. We know who are producers. Here in the terrestrial area, we can say plants are the producers as they are preparing their own food, isn't it? So, in the oceans, diatoms are the chief producers. Number 2, the cell forms 2 thin overlapping shells which fit together as in the soap box. About the cell of diatom, it is being said that the cells are in the form of soap box. We know what is a soap box, isn't it, my dear children? Soap box is a box in which we used to keep the soap and we used to cover it with the outer layer. Together the 2 parts will be there seen in the soap box. Similar, we can see the same structure in the case of the cells of diatom. They are forming of 2 thin overlapping shells. Thin overlapping shells are present there in the cell which will be fitting together like a soap box. Cell walls are made up of silica and the cell wall which is present there in the cell, which is the outermost layer of the cell, is formed of silica. Next one, diatoms leave behind large amount of cell wall deposits in their habitat. This is known as diatomaceous earth. This is very, very important. What is diatomaceous earth? The term diatomaceous came from the word diatom. And diatoms, what they are doing? They are leaving large amount of cell wall. After dying, the cell wall will be deposited beneath the ocean in such a way that they are forming a earth-like structure. A mountain is formed there. That's why the name came as diatomaceous earth. So, we can say as diatoms leave behind large amount of cell wall deposits in their habitat. And where is their habitat? It is in the ocean. So, under the ocean they will be leaving their cell wall, and the cell wall will be deposited for millions and millions of years, and later on it will be forming a mountain, or it is forming a earth shape. That's why it has been said as diatomaceous earth. Now, the economic importance of diatom is been said as it is used in polishing and also used in filtering oils, etc. So, diatomaceous earth means the cell wall is present there, which is made up of silica, and that cell wall is used as polish as well as it is used in filtering oils. So, you can see here, my dear children, the structure of diatoms. So, here I told you about the soap box, isn't it? You can see this two thin overlapping structure, isn't it? So, this is like a soap box. All these are diatoms. See here, it has been said cell walls of dead diatom layer, ocean floor. When mined, it is called diatomaceous earth, used in toothpaste, polishing agents as well as insecticides. So, this is the economic importance of diatom. It is important, and again it has been said here, have two cell walls made of silica, making them appear glass-like. Cell wall is there, two cell wall is there, and they are made up of silica, and the appearance is like glass-like. So, that is about diatom. Now, the second group or second phylum is dinoflagellates. Mostly they are marine and photosynthetic, and they appear as yellow, green, brown, blue or red depending on the presence of major pigment in them. So, they used to be seen in marine water, and they are photosynthetic, that is they are preparing their own food, and based on the pigment present in them, they will be appearing in that color. That is, if they are having yellow pigment, it is yellow. If they are having the major pigment as green, it is green, and if they are having major pigment as brown, so surely their appearance will be brown color. If they are blue or red, surely they will be appearing as blue or red color. Here you can see these are the dinoflagellates, and the cell wall consists of cellulose plate on the outer surface. You can see this is the dinoflagellate, and they are having a cell wall, and it is made up of cellulose plate. The plate is there which is having cellulose in them. Now, they have two flagella, one longitudinal and the other transverse in a furrow between the cell plate. Two flagella. Flagella is a locomotory organ, my dear children, by which they will be able to move from one place to another place. So, this flagella which is present in them is two. One is longitudinal and the other one is transverse. You can see here, this is longitudinal and here is transverse. So, this is the example, that is Goni Alex is the example of dinoflagellate. Here you can see, isn't it? This is the dinoflagellate, and you can see a transverse flagellum is present there, and this one is the longitudinal flagellum. So this is the structure of dinoflagellate, and next one you can see red dinoflagellate, example Goni alex. So this is Goni alex, multiply rapidly and make the sea appear red in color. This is called red tides. This is important. What the red dinoflagellate is doing? Red dinoflagellate example is Goni alex. It is multiplying in such a way that it is making the sea to appear as red in color. You can see here the sea is appearing as red in color. This red color is due to the multiplication of the bacterium multiplication of the protista, that is red dinoflagellate Goni alex, isn't it? So you can see here Goni alex a dinoflagellate, and is responsible for poisonous red tide that sometimes occurs along the coast. Here you can see the cellulose, this is cellulose plate, this one is cellulose plate, that is these plates are made up of cellulose, and you can see here transverse flagellum, and this one is the longitudinal flagellum. This is the main feature of dinoflagellate, that is Goni alex. This is very, very important, my dear children. Now, the third group is euglenoid. Instead of cell wall, they don't have cell wall. They have a protein rich layer called pellicle. Yeah, this region, this is not the cell wall, but this layer is called pellicle. So, in them cell wall is absent. Instead of cell wall, they are having a protein rich layer, or we can say protein rich coat, and that is called pellicle. Pellicle makes their body flexible. That means they can move or they can do anything with the body, as their body is very flexible, isn't it? Because of the presence of pellicle. They have two flagella, isn't it, which is a locomotory organ. Already I have told you they are having two flagella, one is short and the other one is long. So, this is the example of euglenoid, that is Euglena. It is a unicellular flagellate protista. This is Euglena, you can see here, my dear children, and they are photosynthetic but behave like heterotrophs under deprived sunlight. Euglenoid are photosynthetic, that means they are preparing their own food as they are having chlorophyll similar to plants. But when they are deprived of sunlight, when they lack sunlight, when they are not getting the sunlight, what they will do? They will change themselves from photosynthetic to heterotrophic, and they will take the food from other host organism. Example is Euglena, and already I told you this is Euglena. Okay, my dear children. Now we can move on to the fourth class of protista, and that is slime mouse. They are saprophyte. Already we know that what are saprophytes. Saprophytes are those organisms which are depending on dead and decaying matter for their nutrition. So, slime mounds are saprophytes, and under suitable condition, when the condition which will be suitable for them, they form an aggregation called plasmodium. These slime mounds, they will be grouping together, that is aggregation, and that is called plasmodium. That grouping together, all the slime molds, they will be coming together and they will be forming an aggregation, that is called plasmodium. But when the condition is unfavorable, what will happen? The plasmodium differentiate and form fruiting bodies. Under the suitable condition, when they are having a suitable condition, that time plasmodium will be formed there. But when the condition is unfavorable, the same plasmodium will be differentiating and forming the fruiting bodies, and these fruiting bodies are nothing, they are the sac like structure. In them spores are formed there, and with the help of spores new slime mold will be producing. That is about fruiting body. So here you can see fruiting bodies bear spores. I told you now, fruiting bodies are the sac like structures in which the spores are produced, and spores are dispersed by air. So these are the structure of slime mold. You can see these are the spores. When the favorable is, that is when the condition is unfavorable, the plasmodium, this is plasmodium. You can see together slime mold is aggregated and plasmodium is formed there. This is plasmodium. And when the condition is unfavorable, what will happen? This plasmodium will be separating and it is forming spore like structures. This is spore like structures. This is the feature about slime mold. Now the fifth class is related to protozoan. They are heterotrophs. Already we know that what is heterotroph, and there are four major groups of protozoans. Number one is amoeboid protozoan. They have pseudopodia. Already you know about amoeba, my dear children, isn't it? This is entamoeba. It is like amoeba only. So you know about, you have studied about amoeba in your lower classes. So amoeba, it is having a pseudopodium. This is the false feet which they are having. That is pseudopodia. Pseudo means false, podia means feet, to catch the prey. For what they are producing the false feet? They want to catch the prey, as they are heterotrophs. And example is amoeba, entamoeba. And what is entamoeba? Entamoeba, they are parasitic protozoans. So they will be causing surely diseases in plants and animals. So that is about amoeba and entamoeba. Here you can see different types of protozoans are there. Leishmania, Trichomonas, Plasmodium, Malaria, Toxoplasma. All these are the different types of protozoans. So first one we came to know about amoeboid protozoans. Now here you can see protozoans are classified as flagellated, amoeboid, sporozoans and ciliated. Protozoans, they are classified into four groups: flagellated, amoeboid, sporozoans and ciliated. We have just now seen about amoeboid protozoans. Here you can see major groups of protozoans. This is amoeboid type, and this one is ciliated type, this one is flagellated type, and this one is sporozoan type. So four groups of protozoans we can see here. Now the number 2 is flagellated protozoans. They are free living or parasites. Free living, they will be living freely, they will be having their own nutrition and everything, or they will be parasitic in nature. Trypanosoma protozoan causes sleeping sickness disease. This is important. Protozoan called trypanosoma, which is flagellated, and it is causing sleeping sickness disease in animals. As well as you can see here, they have flagella, flagellated. That is why they are known as flagellated, because they are having flagella. Here you can see this is trypanosoma and it is having a flagella, isn't it? This flagella is helping them to move from one place to another place. This is red blood cells. Now next you can see the third one is ciliated protozoans. They have cilia. Cilia is like flagella. They are the locomotory organs, and cilia is like flagella, means flagella will be longer in size, but cilia, it is hair like structures, and they are also helping in the movement of body of the organism from one place to another place. They contain oral groove called peristome. In the case of paramecium, you know this organism very nicely, my dear children, as you have studied about paramecium in your lower classes. Paramecium is having a lower groove, isn't it? That is oral groove. Here, this is the oral groove, this one. This oral groove is called peristome, and this peristome leads to narrow cavity called gullet. A small narrow cavity we can see here in this area, this one is gullet. So, this oral groove will be leading to a narrow opening in the paramecium, and that narrow opening is gullet, and the opening of peristome to the gullet is the mouth. The opening of this peristome to the gullet, this opening is called mouth. An example related to ciliated protozoan is paramecium. That is about ciliated protozoan. The fourth group is sporozoans, characterized by an infectious spore-like stage in their life cycle. That means sporozoans, they are having a stage in their life cycle which is infectious. That is, during that time they will be causing infection and producing diseases. Example is Plasmodium, malarial parasite, causes malaria in human beings. You can see these are the figures of sporozoans, parasite that feeds on cells or body fluids on host. Here you can see causing malaria. The RBC is being changed there. Sporozoans, parasite, non-motile. They are non-motile. Non-motile means they are not able to move from one place to another place. Produce many spores, and the best known member is Plasmodium, which causes malaria, and it is being transferred by mosquitoes from one person to another person. So, mosquito is the agent only, but the main causative organism for causing malaria is Plasmodium, which is a sporozoan. Here you can see this is normal RBC. Now, when this normal RBC is infected, you can see what is happening there, isn't it? This is the malarial parasite multiplying in the RBC, and in this manner the malaria is causing in the person. So, my dear children, I think you would have understood about today's topic related to chapter 1. If you are having any doubts related to today's session, you can call me and clarify your doubts, and always be happy and focus on your goal so that you will be always happy in your life. With this, I wind this session. We will be meeting in the next session with new topics. So, till then, my dear children, stay safe and take care of yourself.